Welcome back to the Smite Challenger Circuit, everybody. Aggro now outside the sun, joined by Mifflin. Miff, we've got a pretty good setup here. The EU SCC always feels very, very competitive because these teams have been so close, but this is another one we got coming up. It's Accounting Department up against the Snake Hunters.
And what is not to be said about the accounting department that hasn't already been said, right? You have so much name recognition. I'm so excited I can't even get my words straight. Ice, Deathwalker, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Wolfie as well, Kalas and Okeanos. These guys have been consistently finding wins inside of the SCC, and we haven't even brought up their coach yet. That's Alpha Jackal over there. This old rival roster coming back together for another glory lap.
And they have looked pretty good. They're sitting pretty in the standings, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Here's your schedule for the Smite Challenger Circuit this weekend. You might have just missed Clay Soldiers take on Elysium, but you can check the VOD on that. Pandemonium and Just F6, the only remaining SCC game in Europe after we get through with this one today, will be played later on this weekend. There's a big one, Miff, because we got a bit of a traffic jam at 3 and 2. Accounting Department, Snake Hunters, and Pandemonium all locked in that spot. So a win here would put a team in second place alone, at least for the moment, pending the outcome of Pandemonium versus Just F6 later this weekend.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty big one here. Accounting Department is a team that is surprisingly hungry. I think I'm allowed to say that. I wasn't expecting a team with so much veteranship coming to the SCC, wanting to win as badly as it seems like these guys do. But I've been able to tune into a couple of their streams. I've been watching some of their interviews as well with some of the community members, and it seems like these guys are trying to remind people that they're not just old men. They are, in fact, still absolutely competitors on the battleground, and that just makes it all the much more fun to watch them.
Listen, man, there's nothing wrong with being a little old, okay? Let me tell you something right now, youngin'. You don't have to worry about getting old. It's awesome when you get older. You get to do more stuff sometimes, but then be weirdly sore after doing like anything. I don't know. It's just kind of the way it goes. Yeah, it's really awesome, actually. Try it out sometime. I suppose you will, without having to do anything at all. The Snake Hunters team on the other side, Mifflin, I think that they might have had, they have looked like they might have the second highest ceiling in this region to me, of course behind Elysium, the team with Adapting and Tricks Tank on them, but they haven't been able to hit that ceiling consistently. Have you seen it the same way?
No, I think that you've got a pretty good read here, and I think it's due in large part to some of the less veteran players on this team. Vaporish Coast, an incredibly young man while we're talking about age here. I got to actually play on LAN against him when he was 14 years old, I believe, and that was about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, his dad was popping off every time I died. Pretty tough to deal with.
Including when he got a Penta, right? When he got a Penta, you remember that?
Yeah, when I bestowed the title Penta Kid on the Vaporish Coast is how I've elected to word it. Yes, his dad popped off on me, but Shoxy Foxy, Gunter, Rapio, and Kha'Zix round out this team, and they're all players that I think, when we're talking about hunger, you gotta consider them as well. A lot of console natives coming over to PC trying to prove that they aren't, kind of counter to the old men argument for the other squad. These guys aren't just console players, they are, in fact, just good Smite players. I think that the Snake Hunters need a little bit more time before they're able to really identify what kind of identity they're trying to bring into these matches, because week in, week out, sometimes we see this early game slated team, sometimes it's more late, sometimes we see them get over-aggressive, under-aggressive, but once they do find that Goldilocks period, that phase of the game where they are looking and firing on all cylinders, this is a squad that you have to keep your eyes on.
I've been particularly impressed with the side laners of Snake Hunters. Vaporish Coast, obviously a main name on this squad, but Kha'Zix as well on the other side. I've been very impressed with what he brings to the team fight. So we'll see if the mid 3v3 can keep up here with the Accounting Department, because I think that might be the spot that needs the most work right now for the Snake Hunters. Wondering if the Accounting Department's going to try and play through Wolfie as they normally do in that mid lane, and for good reason, because he wins them a lot of games. Excited to see that side lane matchup between Kha'Zix and Deathwalker as well. As we are into picks and bans, it's Accounting Department with that first pick position, and they immediately take away the Ymir, where we saw plenty of clips of there for the Snake Hunters, so it makes sense.
Yeah, that Ymir is so integral for Shoxy Foxy, so it makes sense that they don't want to allow him to play his best god, and instead going to go ahead and now shift their focus more towards the meta bans on her. Taking off the table, Sun Wukong on the other side is going to leave a fair bit on the table here. Wouldn't be surprised if Yamoja makes her way through, or Guan Yu. We know that the Global Hunters have been falling off kind of the top pick charts a little bit in recent weeks. Apollo and Chernobog kind of making their way through the majority of drafts as well in exchange for Jingwei and Heimdall, but bans do finish out here, and Tsukiyomi makes his way through, and I think that's going to be the first pick for accounting department.
Yeah, they have loved the Tsukiyomi pick, but it isn't, surprisingly enough. I was right there with you, Miff, but when you're banning out the Anhur, trying to keep Coast uncomfortable, it's really, in the SPL at least, been a two-horse race for top hunter, and it's Heimdall and Anhur. Accounting department ban away one, take the other with their first selection. And that leaves the Snake Hunters pretty open. This Osiris has looked absolutely dominant for Deathwalker in the solo lane as of late. So Snake Hunters try and take that away as well. It seems like both teams are trying to play keep away from their opposition.
Yeah, this Deathwalker's Osiris is not the standard Osiris, by the way. This isn't Death Toll pickup, just kind of abuses the sustain in lane. Instead, it's more so a poke-style build. He goes for the Sundering Axe, he likes the Glad Shield, and just wants to consistently be throwing out the Sickle, as well as the Unravel, to find poke from a range. If someone steps a little bit too far forward, then he might dig in his heels and look for the fight there. Osiris and Set both going to be locked in for the side of Snake Hunters. And that's an interesting top two, considering how much value is still on the table. Set certainly not a slouch in the lock-in department, but Yamoja makes her way through as well. Scylla's out there and gets picked up by accounting department. I think that it's very interesting how these two teams have elected to kind of prioritize their picks. And how did I forget about Sobek, man? That god is so strong.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like accounting department are coming away with a lot of very strong picks, and particularly around setting up for Wolfie, getting him that priority pick in the Scylla. We know Gunter has prioritized that on the other side. Getting Kalas, the Sobek, feels very strong to me. I think accounting department likely very happy with where they've ended up so far in the picks and bans. This is the Jingwei for Coast. Don't want to have his god pool get picked apart a little bit more in those second round of bans, so I think it makes sense to go to this pick now, especially whenever the Sobek's on the other side. Jingwei is the premier god that you want to go in that situation.
Yeah, I think so. Now, Kukulkan getting removed from the ban table and Serket on the other side. Aggro, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to go ahead and break trend a little bit here. What do you think of second pick in general? I believe the statistic that it's a 65% win rate for second pick inside the SPL. What's your take on that?
Yeah, normally second pick's better whenever there isn't one absolutely dominant god. That if you can, when you're first pick, you want to try and manipulate the picks and bans to get the one premier god. And because there isn't one of those right now, I mean, Athena's up there, Tiamat's up there, but I don't think those are instant win conditions every single time. I think that having back-to-back picks at the top of the draft is very strong, and then having your counter pick last. We've seen a lot of teams save junglers for last pick, save mid laners for last pick, trying to get them some comfortable matchups. It doesn't surprise me that it's higher win rate for second pick. It surprises me how much higher I would say second pick is right now more than anything else.
Yeah, it feels like that +1 in that second pick slot is always so incredibly strong because those two gods that you have highlighted, Athena and Tiamat, are usually inside that ban column, which means that there's still going to be so much left available, which means that second pick is always going to be pretty good for them. Odin locked in, has a decent matchup into Set. Once that jumps down, Osiris, not so much. Man can just walk through the cage. Feels like this Odin is picked up just as a comfort pick, even just looking top to bottom on the draft. Maybe I'm exposing myself here and missing something obvious. I can't really identify why you'd want to go to Odin here in particular.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, though. I think that there must have been better picks on the board here for Deathwalker. Though you assume it's Deathwalker, maybe it's Rat Solo, Odin, Jungle, Ice known for his Odin in the jungle, and then it makes a little bit more sense to me with the more pressure on the map early. You want to go with a warrior in the jungle, but Tsukiyomi was still open, like you said. I mean, there is still a lot that they could have gone with, but they feel strong with the Odin, and Shoxy does not go with a pick that can get out of the cage. He goes with the Kumbhakarna with things like Xingchen, Fafnir still open. I don't know, the Odin pick kind of throwing me for a loop, and maybe the Snake Hunters as well.
Yeah, Kumbhakarna felt like it was just a lock-in that they had identified that they wanted before they saw this Odin, right? No pivot there, going to dig our heels in and pick what we want. But I think that you may have hit it on the head here. I would not be overly surprised if we see this Odin go into the jungle with Ratatasker out of solo, Sobek inside support, and then Heimdall and Scylla falling to their own respective roles. But what phase of the game are they really aiming for? Accounting department, that is. You generally, when you have an Odin composition, it changes how late game team fights look. But up against the Snake department draft, I just feel like that it's not the best lock-in here. What do you think they're trying to do here?
I mean, I feel like it's got to be about setting up for a Wolfie. It has to be at this point, because otherwise I don't know what you're picking all these stuns and set up for. Prioritizing the mid laner has been the name of the game for the accounting department so far. We'll see if he can carry them to another victory here in Game 1 up against the Snake Hunters.
Well, Aggro and Mifflin were wondering where this Ratatasker and where the Odin would end up, and Aggro had the read. Ice on Odin out of the jungle, Deathwalker on Ratatasker and solo. My name is Dolson. Goremiser's with me. Doug working the camera for accounting department versus the Snake Hunters. And Goremiser, admittedly, that's a bit of a detraction from the standard, isn't it? With Odin in jungle and Ratatasker over in solo. What are the expectations here?
I mean, last year we got to see a little bit of Odin in the jungle. I think Rat solo, look, I think I've seen FineOK do it. I can't remember if I was watching his stream or if that was a Pro League thing. It all kind of blurs together when you're watching Fino, because he's going to win no matter what in his lane.
Yeah, right.
So it's something that I know can work, right? I'm actually
works.
excited to see how Deathwalker is going to be able to bring this to the forefront, because, like, we've seen, we mentioned, Kamazotz, we've seen Set go into the solo lane, we've seen Tsukuyomi go into the solo lane. I think there's a little bit of flexibility for these assassins to make their way over there, and I want to know, like, the Acorn that Deathwalker is going to pick up, all the good stuff, right, that's going to break it down. I think this Bluestone Pendant is really going to help him kind of hold his own in the lane, even though I think early on he's going to be decently easy to bully out, and honestly probably out clear as well for the Osiris. The problem is, this could be a really cool pick, but I don't really like Odin in the jungle. I think Ice is going to be able to have a good game, but there's a certain amount of work that has to be done, a lot of it early game, to make sure that this Odin pick isn't necessarily wasted. And there's a lot of survivability on the side of the Snake Hunters. Maybe not everybody can get out of the cage, but it's sure enough for a few of them that it's not really going to be the lockdown that you want. So I want to watch Ice and just see how this jungle pick works. It already looks like he might be coming over to the duo lane, but just where he gets aggressive and where he tries to lock people down.
Well, the Porsche Coast got plucked and then dashed away, so he'll survive. You're right, though, Gore. Ice over here on the left-hand side of the map. At some point, you wonder if somebody from the Snake Hunters feels pressured to buy a Phantom. I guess that depends on the effectiveness of Ice throughout the course of this game, how much pressure the Snake Hunters feel like they are under. A couple might have the ability to get on out of there, but remains to be seen. On the flip side of that coin, though, you're kind of talking about how you don't want to miss out on some of the good early, mid, late game of this Odin. Kind of his power curve sort of shifts. Is there a similar concern with Ratatasker over in solo, though, right? I mean, the ultimate in these late game team fights is going to be great, or in the mid to late games once Deathwalker is able to rotate. Are you nervous that one of the best things about Ratatasker is his ability to rotate in with the ultimate in the early game, and, well, Deathwalker's over in solo lane with it?
Yes and no. I think that early on those matter most, like, as a jungler. I think for solo, it is unfortunate. Like, his ult admittedly is going to be used, I would say, more often to get out of jail free, maybe as an engage on to Kha'Zix, but for the most part, I anticipate that to actually be a really great initiator in the late game, like still kind of applying that. Again, a lot of it's going to depend on his build, the acorns he goes into, as well as some of the items that he picks up. If he's going bruisery, I assume Ice is going to go a little bruisery in there as well, right? To have these two pseudo front lines, Odin maybe more so than a Ratatasker, but that capability of, I'm going to knock him up, get the beads, lock down the back line, Deathwalker, who's going to be able to jump in very easily to Gunter, Vaporish Coast and lock them down, while Ice deals with maybe the forefront, the Kha'Zix, the Rapio, the Shoxy Foxies of the world here for Snake Hunters. And I think it's going to be a good duo dynamic for Engage.
Yep.
And then, of course, you've got Sobek, right? Like, Sobek just fits in there pretty smoothly, as in he can do whichever one the other two want to do. But a lot of it does depend on... I think for Deathwalker, it's just surviving, but for Ice it might be a little more than that.
Deathwalker's got plenty of multi-pots and the Chalice to keep him sustained up in this lane. Kha'Zix went Warrior Tabi first and foremost. No starter item on the Osiris here. So we'll have to see what Osiris ends up building into. Sometimes the Bumba's Hammer picked up later on. Deathwalker uses his ultimate here, jumps back down onto Kha'Zix. Is this a true 1v1 attempt or what? It is, because Ice Ice is here as well, and Ice Ice has the ultimate. Kha'Zix does as well, and the Osiris will leap out, stay alive. No first blood just yet. Bit of a bait and switch there. Blue buff not up just yet. Snake Hunters will be able to back away and grab that one, coming up a little bit sooner than the accounting department. But Gore looks like no attempted invade for the time being.
I mean, solid from accounting department to be able to get aggressive when they do. But again, like you said, maybe want to see a little more out of it. That's, again, maybe one of the issues I have with the draft overall. Osiris, as long as his ult is available or his passive is up, he's just going to walk out of the ult that Ice Ice can throw down. So smart on Ice Ice to not drop it there. I don't even know if he was in a good position to ever lock down Kha'Zix in that circumstance. But I think there's a lot of problems in terms of that engagement, right? I think Ice Ice is going to have to go for, again, a lot of this late-game playstyle where it's actually a thick bark acorn here. So physical power, but that 10% prots. This is actually a really fun one. There's the prots acorn and the health acorn that were going around for a little bit. And the health acorn, I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head, but alongside things like an Oni Hunter's Garb where you get a lot of mitigations. I think Raffer pulled it off in the SPL a couple of games last year. Like, Ratatosker, the right build, he 100% can be a lot tankier than people are going to give him credit for. He's a tiny, tiny little squirrel, but he can absolutely rock your world with a good amount of damage, good setup, while simultaneously being super tanky. So I really like this. The 10% prots isn't necessarily going to be a whole lot right now, as you can imagine. He doesn't have anything else for it to really build that percent off of. But as the game goes on, Deathwalker's going to be a real thorn in their side.
Yeah, it's going to be a menace once the Ratatosker is able to rotate around, so we'll have to follow that thread throughout the game. Haven't seen much out of the mid lane just yet. Wolfie and Gunter happy just to sit back, farm things up. Wolfie's reached the point now where he's A-OK clearing out a wave with, looks like a few autos and a crush. Deathwalker has to use the ultimate to escape. This time looks like Kha'Zix used his ultimate there as well. Rapio over here on the right side of the map. But neither Deathwalker nor Ice Ice will be there when Rapio pokes his head on that side of the jungle, or will any of the camps. So it'll be kind of a fruitless invade here for the set. Now over the next few minutes of this game, Gore, this is when the supports start to rotate out of lane. Shoxy, Foxy, and Kalas have already been in mid lane a little bit here as well. Now we get to kind of see the respective strengths of this Kumbhakarna versus the Sobek, as the Sobek will already find his first set of beats for the game.
I think that's something, Kalas, that power hasn't necessarily been talked about a whole ton, because we've talked about it a lot. Like, you know, there's an Odin, there's a Ratatosker in the game. Sobek is going to keep doing Sobek things, but that presence that Kalas is going to be able to bring, the combo that him, Ice Ice, and Wolfie can bring as a 3v3, it's going to be pretty deadly to, I would argue, most of the Snake Hunters in the mid. I mean, if you get Gunter's dash early on, that's a really easy pick for Kalas to then pluck, or vice versa. If Kalas forces the dash out with a good pluck, Ice Ice can lock him down in the cage, and I think that's where the strength of this Odin can come through, is because you have something as powerful as Sobek beside it to really help empower you to the next level. I'm honestly kind of surprised that they haven't been a little more aggressive with it. Still no first blood 7.5 minutes in. I feel like Sobek, especially with the Scylla behind him, maybe taking a little bit of time to scale upwards, but in a good position to get aggressive and get a lot of damage out there in a short amount of time.
It does feel that way. But this is right the standard pace of VU. What Elysium was doing there in game one was a bit abnormal, it felt like, with all their fighting, but it works for them. So 8 minutes in, keeping all things casual and calm, building up the tension a little bit. Kha'Zix did end up going back, pick up the Warrior's Axe for his starter item. I guess I don't know what the term for a starter item is that you don't start with, but a regular old item, I guess, there in the Warrior's Axe. After the Warrior Tab, we've seen some good poke out of the Osiris onto the Ratatosker, but Deathwalker hasn't really been in the eye of death all that much as of yet. Accounting department, though, feel like they have a bit of an advantage here on the left-hand side of the map. They'll take down the Greater Scorpion, enhance those buffs on the back side, and back towards the mid lane go both of these supports. Shoxy, Foxy, and Kalas both staring one another down. Back they'll go. And you start to look, I think, or towards some of the setup. If the setup around this Ratatosker and the Odin and the Heimdall and the Sobek are all connecting, Wolfie is going to have kind of free range to get off those crushes and I'm a monsters you have to feel like throughout this game.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they do it. I really am interested, though. Shoxy Foxy, as a player, I want to say last week, maybe the last couple of weeks, has really caught my eye in terms of support. Same thing for Kha'Zix. Like, those two as frontliners have been really solid for their teams. And I think that's a lot of open avenue area to work with on Snake Hunters. I mean, knowing that you have good frontliners really does make it a little bit easier on the backliners to get their job done when you're playing things like Set, Raijin, as well as this Jing Wei, either safe or a lot of damage in them. It's going to give you, again, a lot of wiggle room to work with. But Kumba is where you maybe lose me a little bit. Shoxy Foxy's Emoja was what I thought of when I hear that name and when I remember impressing me so much. This Kumba feels like it's just kind of lacking in engage. I mean, it's the same problem that he has kind of normally, unless you're in the middle of a team fight. Like, I love picking up Kumba if I can in, like, arena, when I know I'm just going to be going in to fight people, because once you get into that stage and area of a game in Conquest, he feels so good. I mean, like, you do a little more damage than you expect. Epic Uppercut makes it a 4v5 for a little bit. Like, there's a lot of good things about him. Right here in the lane phase, it doesn't feel like you get the same poke level that you would out of, like, a Sobek, the Ymirs, where one pluck, one wall, anything like that is going to make the big difference. It does feel like it's going to take a little while before we get to really see anything big from Shoxy Foxy here.
It does. I remember I played Assault. I was playing Assault once, and I got Kumba. And other than that, there were 5 physicals on my team, so I had to build full damage Kumba Karna, and I've never been more confused in my entire life, but it was kind of fun to play, I guess. All my abilities were hitting pretty hard, but don't recommend it. I think tank is the right route here for Shoxy Foxy to go. Maybe a little bit of action now, a blink in from Shoxy Foxy, or maybe it's out as Kalas is in behind the Kumba Karna. No purple buff to invade here for Okeanos, so back to farming we go. Gold Fury is spawned here, Gore, so we might start to see some eyes over here on the left-hand side of the map. The secure definitely there for the accounting department with the Scylla out of the mid lane, so maybe that opens up the door to a sneaky objective.
I mean, Gold Fury, Fire Giant still on the board, makes it pretty easy to just come in and absolutely decimate those health bars, like you said at the very end. A lot more safe than anything like a Raijin's going to be able to provide. Raijin's really good in those team fights, but doesn't have the same giant burst confirm that Asilla is going to be able to bring. And honestly, with the pace of the game right now, that's better for accounting department every single way. I mean, they're a little bit behind, about 1,000 gold, but save for the Odin, I would argue every single one of these picks is just going to get stronger as time goes on. Ratatosker yet to be seen, but I will admit I have a lot of trust in Deathwalker to make this one work, that I think that a quote-unquote Ice is the weakest, right, in this turn, or in terms of the longevity of the game, but realistically, that's not even that true, because this Odin is still going to be devastating with good teamfight walls in the late game, so, like, it just feels like Snake Hunters are playing a waiting game. Admittedly, that might not be too great for them. There's a lot of good damage from Gunter and Rapio, but everything else, it feels like it's going to be very dependent on execution. When it comes down to that, I have a little more trust in the accounting department right now.
Yeah, it seems that way. I agree with you there, Gore. The pace of this game. Now 12 and a half, almost 13 minutes in. We've seen this a whole lot, though, haven't we? Where Kha'Zix has just walked on in. I will delay no further because a fight is broken out, and Shoxy Foxy will be the first death of the game if the passive is procced here. Kalas in the middle of the fray, and Shoxy Foxy goes down, but Vapor's Coast able to whittle down the health bar of that Sobek far enough to trade out one kill on the backline. Okeanos is alone. We use the Bifrost to survive, and it looks like 1 for 1 is all we got.
It's important to try and strip away control from Snake Hunters here. Admittedly, without Kha'Zix, they don't necessarily have someone to tank it. I was wondering if Ice was going to go in there or not, but it looks like they're going to slow it down. You use all of your ults, your confirm mainly from Wolfie to try and lock down that frontliner to kill off Shoxy Foxy. I'd be a little worried if you don't maintain control over that Gold Fury pit afterward. I think you lose the Gold Fury and start to fall behind. But I mean, look at that, a good kill early on, even though you lose Kalas. I think it's important for them to be able to get that first blood bounty.
Oh, that's so unfortunate for Okeanos, unless he's somehow able to close the gap onto Vapor's Coast. I was about to ask, actually, and maybe this is a good segue, if there is a notable difference in going Wind Demon instead of Executioner with that next item in the Hunter build here. It's usually Devos, Ninja Tabai, and then one of Executioners or Wind Demon. And later in the game, it doesn't matter because Vaporish Coast and Okeanos will get the other item next, most likely. Is there any real difference there? I mean, is it negligible? I mean, is there a steeper power curve? I mean, what do you think the mindset is there? One side more crit, the other side Executioner.
A lot of it is going to be, I think, actually God-based, right? Like attack speed when you're Heimdall kind of necessary in order to feel a little more powerful and potent, right? Crit chance without being able to hit often is going to give you one big burst, but you're not going to get the kill. But for Jing Wei, this Wind Demon prior is realistically, because it synergizes so well with her explosive or bolts, that second ability already has a base crit chance on it as you level it up, so it's 0 to, I believe, 20% at max for her. So assuming level 15, you probably got that maxed out by now, so if you're Coast, so you're getting that 20% just as a base whenever you pop your 2, then you get the Wind Demon on top of that. So you're really opening yourself up to have more crits, maybe win these one-on-ones a little bit stronger earlier on. That's going up to, what is that, 35% crit chance early on for you, at least 3 shots where you're going to have that. So it makes those trades, I think, a little easier for the Jing Wei, even if you don't quite get that same attack speed. Plus, Wind Demon has a little bit of attack speed on it, right? So, like, theoretically, you're getting, I want to say an inkling of more, but I think it's a lot of the synergy. And same thing maybe with some of the other hunters. Maybe they don't have quite the same, like, crit chance synergy, but being able to flex into that because you don't necessarily heavily need the attack speed is always going to be nice.
Confirm is there for the accounting department. You got to get it when the crush is on the ground, but the Snake Hunters, they want blood after losing the objective here, so Vaporish Coast will dash on forward. Ice in there as well, but Ice will leave. Looks like the right call there, Gora. Accounting department get the objective. Felt a little out of sorts on their back pedal, so I think getting out's the right call instead of turning and trying to fight.
And at this point, it's about getting a small lead and maintaining it for a little bit. With the Pyromancer going down, you only really come out a little bit ahead, right? I mean, at this point, it's a first blood bounty ahead, and that's pretty much the only difference between the two teams. And that's where I think some of the pressure is on to accounting department. Trying to get a lead, maintaining that lead in these games seems to be very difficult. And again, that European style of play, 16 minutes in, 2 kills. It gets to the point where one bad team fight around the Fire Giant is all it will take to lose you a game. Potentially, you'll get a second one as a round of defense with respawns coming up. But looking at the low health bars, like this is where the state of the map really starts to play into it. And accounting department, even though technically have a little bit more gold, are losing on the map, at least at a blanket statement, because solo lane has a little more pressure, expected because it's Ratatosker. Duo lane and mid have a little more pressure. And so that's something that they've got to worry about if your accounting department, is that if you are the ones that lose that fight, it's a little easier to knock down your half of the map.
It is. Speaking of half the maps that have not seen any action, the right-hand side has been effectively the same story this entire game. Kha'Zix wailing away on Deathwalker, Deathwalker ulting away from the fight, and then all back to normal there. But the important thing is, Gore, is although Kha'Zix has gotten all this damage in, forced Deathwalker back to base, all that sort of stuff, what is that translated into, right? Maybe a little bit of XP differential, not a full level at least. Items looking pretty similar there. Kha'Zix already feeling the pressure of the late game crit from Okeanos here, Spectral Armor, early on here in this game. But I think the fact that Deathwalker, despite having to play defensively so often here in this lane, the fact that he's not all that far behind, if behind at all, is an awesome outlook here. I mean, you look at the net worth charts there, he's, what, 100 gold behind, something like that, effectively negligible. So the Ratatosker's done his job here, and so will Okeanos, surviving after Foxy rotates in behind.
I mean, being able to survive, again, that was kind of the merit I had for him. Early game was just live through the lane. Prots are going to be good right now, but are you going to be able to, again, find these rotations, make a big fight? I actually really like this. The back from Deathwalker there, going into the mid lane with his ult available. Oni Fury's not up for a few more minutes, but that gives him the opportunity to rotate with his team wherever they want to go. Kind of gives you a lot of flexibility as opposed to just worrying about your own tower, your own lane. To me, again, showcases maybe that accounting department don't care as much about these tier 1 towers and are more focused on just trying to play the map pretty much anywhere else they might be able to find their strengths. And those neutral objectives are admittedly what feel like the end-all be-all, although sometimes we see that that's not necessarily the case. You can get a Fire Giant, still lose the game. The other team wipes you in the middle of the fight. So Snake Hunters, in my mind, can continue doing what they're doing. I mean, so far, again, they've been able to keep up with Accounting Department in terms of farm. They've been keeping up with them in terms of levels. You've got, what, a 1-level lead in the jungle for Snake Hunters, and then a 1-level lead in support for Accounting Department. And at that point, those maybe cancel each other out, realistically, because it's a level 18 and a level 14. Like, they're not necessarily the end-all, be-all. Level 20, that might change some of the conversation. They're level 17 there for the supports. But as of now, I think Collis has an advantage, not just in level, but in terms of engage.
Yep.
Same thing for Deathwalker if he ever comes back over here.
Collis has the Pridwen as well. So on the back end of an ultimate. Little extra survivability then from the Sobek. Deathwalker waiting. He's going to be waiting for a minute for that that next wave to spawn on out of the map, but he's got his own minion wave timer. So he'll go out, proxy. We'll see what he does on the back end of this. An okay time to check in on some builds. The pace of this game, Gore, better for some stacking items than other. The Charon's coin that Gunter has picked up has the single stack on it thanks to the assist. Whereas on the other side, Ice has had plenty of time to farm up, stack up that Transcendence. Vapor's Coast dashes away, the safety of the Jingwei in full effect. Where did all that damage come from? Okeanos near death, and it seemed like almost out of nowhere, so he'll survive, as will Vaporish Coast. That's about as much action as we've gotten in the last few minutes, as Ice maybe looks for red buff invade.
Those Ornate Arrows coming online as well. Okeanos just picked his up. Same thing for Coast on that back, so a little more crit chance being able to come through. At this point, Deadly, I mean, 1 dagger ahead for Coast as opposed to what Okeanos has. The Hunters, they're starting to hit a lot harder, and even though they're both playing, you know, theoretically the most safe Hunters are the safest Hunters that you can in the duo lane, it's starting to get close where, like, you don't have the same window of opportunity to guarantee your safety, right? The charge up to get into the crystal or to use your ult of your Coast to get out. It's a lot deadlier now.
Kalas, I think, took more damage than he bargained for. How about the onslaught now from the Snake Hunters? They want to push back through. Instead of looking for the fight, though, the Snake Hunters instead will turn back. Oni Fury now engaged on. Deathwalker dashes in, finds a stun, but takes more damage in return than he was able to output. So the Oni Fury gets reset, but these singular 1 dive in, 1 back out engagements are only delaying things, it feels like, for the Accounting Department. Snake Hunters once more will start to pull the Oni Fury, but then back up. Seems like they're looking for a pick, and then maybe start the objective.
Just trying to get control again. Whenever Scylla's up, as long as Wolfie has that ult, I don't know if it feels good. Shoxy's low.
That's right, Shoxy is low, but up in the sky is Deathwalker. He's found the double dunk in on the back line to Bifrost away from Okeanos to stay alive. Gunter has to thunder crash out of the ring of spears, but Ice has the collapse. Shoxy Foxy is low as well, but Rapio has the chase down, and Ice will be the second casualty of the fight, but Deathwalker will pull one more over onto Kha'Zix, giving the Accounting Department that 1 kill advantage.
Being able to find that kill, specifically onto Kha'Zix, Deathwalker feels really solid here. And even though you expend your big guarantee, everyone's just too low on the side of Snake Hunters to re-engage. Shoxy Foxy forced it back there. It looks like Coast, as well as the set, they're going to watch this Fury being taken. I mean, the Oni Fury is going to be, I mean, a capable steal for them. I don't know if it's something that they'll be able to do, but they're going to try, and unfortunately not for them. But great for Accounting Department. Again, those neutral objectives are where they're going to pull their lead. And luckily for them this time, it's not just a small skirmish where you win, pseudo-win a fight, and Snake Hunters just run to the other side and get a Pyromancer. This time, they actually get an objective and maintain a more than 1,000 gold lead for what I would argue is, I think, the first time this game.
And it's a small note, Gore, but with that previous fight, Rapio able to get a kill and an assist and stay alive, pulls a couple levels ahead of Ice, so the XP differential not in the jungle for the Accounting Department, probably over the rest of the map here, as Kalas has the 2-level lead over his counterpart. All else somewhat equal there. Finally, some action over here on the right-hand side of the map, but of course the Osiris will be able to leap away. Thanks to Lord of the Afterlife, this tower so low here, the Oni minions will assist in taking it down. The Snake Hunters bring 3, but nothing really there to defend Gore. Pyromancer is close by, but we are 24 minutes into the game, and both Hunters are here. 1 bad fight means Fire Giant.
Unfortunately, with all 5 ults available, Kha'Zix not having his, I think it's a little easier for Accounting Department to do exactly that, right? Secure themselves well, in this case, just a Pyromancer, a little baby FG. Give a little bit movement speed outside of the base. Like, not even really needed right now for them, depending on how the backs go. It looks like Deathwalker might try to get one going for them, but like, with upgraded starters soon enough coming online, like Wolfie just ticked over to 20, same thing for Gunter. It maybe seems a little bit easier for the mid laners to back off this time around. But you had mentioned it earlier, that Charon's coin there for Gunter. I mean, its base stats are all right, so it's not the end-all, be-all of things, but Wolfie definitely is feeling like he's hitting a little bit harder, has a lot more control over here. Gunter's probably going to be able to find a little more damage onto people like Okeanos, or definitely Collis, Ice, and Deathwalker with that extra pin early on, but it just doesn't feel as though he's anywhere near as in control right now as you would want your Raijin to be. It also feels like intimidating. I don't know where Snake Hunter's engage is. Like, I mean, Shoxy Foxy you have to think is the one that they want to, but Kumba, you dash in very much like a missed Sobek pluck, except that that's just straight up the ability. Now you're just in between everybody and isolated.
Right, you don't get this, right, where Kalas can just send Shoxy Foxy flying back into the frame, and then a crush with the Sikkim will bring him down to half HP. Kalas down low as well. But then Ice has a bit of engagement. He'll leap in, won't find the cage just yet, will eat a Raiju. I'm a Monster flies through, ticks down for a little bit of damage. Rapio has to dash away here, and now it's the Ring of Spear separating out this fight, and Shoxy Foxy into the passive. Up in the sky is Deathwalker, that's going to buy some space. And the pack line now re-engaged on by the Ratatoskr.
And I mean, being able to chase him down easily as well. Like, these are TKOs whether or not they actually get the kill. I see 2-3 people that are going to have to back the base. That opens up a lot of room for Snake Hunters.
And it's Fire Giant now pulled by the accounting department as the Snake Hunters will have to return back from base. I think the Snake Hunters probably privy to the idea that this is going on, but there's not much that can be said. The only ultimate on the map for the Snake Hunters is that Lord of the Afterlife. And unfortunately, that's not going to be enough to get it done. Accounting department find a pick. But a couple of the TKOs there, Gormizer, is the big difference maker.
Again, it's small things like that, but I think the engage on Snake Hunters is just non-existent, I guess, is really the only way I can look at it. I mean, maybe Rapio can go in, maybe Kha'Zix with a leap or some slows, but when you look at the ults that Deathwalker, Ice, or the pluck that Collis has, like, there's so much to just create fights out of nothing on the side of accounting department, whereas for Snake Hunters, you've got to really rely on not only your team being there, but your positioning to be well, and hoping the damage goes off. Like, there's a little bit of, well, just lack. There's a lack of a lot on the side of Snake Hunters, and I think accounting department are kind of showcasing that in these fights where it's small leads, right? Small wins, only a couple of kills ahead, but they're starting these fights more consistently, and they're winning these fights because they're the ones forcing them to happen.
Right, it's consistent hard CC that the accounting department feels like they probably have. The Snake Hunters are feeling like they might not have. The counter engage is good enough. The kite backwards from Vaporish Coast, if that's good enough, maybe that's where some of these fights can start to get turned around. Because we've seen the Jingwei kind of backpedaling out of some of these fights as an engage has happened. And then the frontliner of the accounting department is half HP before they have anything to say about it. Now it's going to be the Ring of Spears by Ice, and look at what that delays here. Snake Hunter sent 5 over to the right-hand side looking for Ice, won't get the kill. But decent engage ultimate now off the table, Gore. No more ult there from the Odin.
And with all 5 over here, look what's wide open. Tier 2 and mid, that's going to happen no matter what. Looks like the answer to your question is going to be no. 4 of them get back before the jungler does. But that's my baby Worf. I mean, Wolfie's looking for blood. They're going to guarantee get these 2 Tier 2 towers. I was wondering if Wolfie was going to even go in and look for a little kill on the set. Maybe a little too smart. Look, as strong as Scylla is, as a mage player, you never want to be the one who goes in on the assassin. Definitely not by yourself. Look, even with Beats and Aegis, I don't know. That's a risky call, and I recognize it as it is. They're playing it safe. They're playing it clean right now. Almost 10,000 gold ahead. Actually, now going up closer to that because of that Fury. They're looking to find a lot of control. With Phoenix is exposed, this is the kind of pivot point that Snake Hunters really don't have a lot of ways back from. I'm looking again at Shoxy, Foxy, and Kha'Zix. They're the ones that kind of need to start a fight, but it's Gunter and Coast and Rapio who need to win it for them, right? The damage needs to be there more than anything. Deathbringer's online there for the carry, but this Raijin hasn't necessarily had a huge impact on all these fights. Same thing for the set. We haven't really gotten to see a whole lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, with 6 kills in the game, 28 minutes in, hard to gauge where the power stands here. Vaporshko stunned on the backline by Ice, and the Ring of Spears falls. The Phoenix does not, however. couple ultimates down. Okeanos used his ult, Ice used his ult, and the Phoenix stands strong. But Gore, you're in an area where one more concerted effort will get that Phoenix down.
Yeah, it won't be too difficult for them if they continue this amount of pressure. And again, the ults, the engage, that's what they have.
Kalas lurking in the waters as Deathwalker living rent-free in the backline. Gunter, if he's not going to die, he's out of the fight at least. And Rapio doing his best to turn around some of the damage, but not able to do so consistently enough. A Porsche Coast staying alive. That's important, Gore. Remember, that's what the Snake Hunters need, is this Jing Wei to weave that damage in there in between the engages. And look at what's happening. Accounting department get the Phoenix. But they've now been split as Deathwalker goes right through a couple, and the re-dive is in from the accounting department.
Whew, and that was the cleanest split on that passive we've had all game. Nobody worried about hitting him or where that kill is going to go. They just wanted to burn him down to get to the Phoenix as fast as possible. Kalas is still low. Ice is about half health. This is a dangerous Phoenix to push into, especially with the people they have defending it. But it shouldn't be enough. I don't know. Fire Giant wore off too. Dave, this is getting real risky if you're accounting department. The longer you take, the more respawns come through.
Deathwalker wants to go in. Ice has his ultimate as well. The Ratatosker is half HP. Porsche Coast down low as well. Phoenix is gone. And that's likely the let's leave card now for the accounting department. A crush just to cover their escape. Kha'Zix might have the legs to chase this one down. Hunters might try to chase this one out here, Gore, but the Phoenix has been taken. And it looks like accounting department will survive.
And there's a world where if Kalas or Ice feel like they're in danger, Ice drops the cage down, creates some space for his team even further. But luckily for them, they didn't even need to do it. Fire Giant's about to come up. You don't want to be spending any of your ults if possible. They get that clear path right into the base. I mean, this is one good team fight away from accounting department being able to walk away with a victory. But, Dave, I feel like I have to say this, especially with how close the last one was. This is why EU ends up being so perplexing in some circumstances. It's a 10,000 gold lead. I should be nothing but in the pockets of accounting department saying this is why they're going to win. But Snake Hunters, all you have to do, admittedly difficult because of the way the last few have gone, but they showcase they have the tenacity to. You win this fight, you win the game. I mean, you just knock down a couple of towers, and all of a sudden you're breaking down the Phoenix. The kill spawn or the respawn timers, 31 minutes, are going to be a lot. This is an enhanced Fire Giant, even easier for you to take down all of those towers with the backdoor protection stripped away. So you've got a lot of openings here for Snake Hunters. You just need some engage. You need something to get in there.
Whoa, look at this. Ice has found the backline. Porsche Coast has not been able to dash out of the spears, but will use that airstrike to survive. Okeanos, by the skin of his teeth, stays alive. The peel on the backline, massive, but Porsche Coast turns around to kill onto Ice as well. The Fire Minions have found their way into the Titan. It's a 2-for-1 trade. Accounting department so far ahead.
I mean, this is exactly what you want to see if you're accounting department. You're being able to win the trades. You do trade jungler for jungler, but it seems like you're going to be able to get a little bit more. They lose Wolfie, Dave. That, honestly, that's so much of their secure.
Oh, Coast gets plucked back through. It's a double kill for Okeanos. Yeah, Gunter, the last man alive. It's Deathwalker, Kalas, and Okeanos against Gunter, an enhanced Fire Giant on the map. And the call is not to end the game. Instead, the call is to grab this Fire Giant and maybe regroup later and push together.
Yeah, again, you want this strip back door protections. That's going to be nice, but realistically,
wow, they're going to wait for 15
seconds. With 5
seconds.
People, I don't know that you're going to be able to hold this. So 15 seconds, I can believe it, get it on Ice. If they wait the full 30 seconds, that's how they'll impress me, right? Like, wait until Wolfie's back up. 20 more seconds on the clock. I think it's more important here for Ice, but yeah, okay, they're going to grab it. That's the risk they would have been able to herald, right? You hold it there too long, Kha'Zix jumps over the wall. That's actually just a few seconds mismatch from Snake Hunters being able to walk away with an EFG.
Well, Kha'Zix went back to base, upgraded his teleport, and then tried to teleport in. Smart play, right? In that moment, the Snake Hunters realized that it's being delayed out by the accounting department, maybe for one more death timer. Kha'Zix was quick enough to try to make the attempt on it. The best you can hope for there in that situation. The accounting department will get the enhanced Fire Giant on 4, all but Wolfie. Oni Fury shortly to follow. That's going to be Oni Fire Minions on the left side of the map. But, and if we're sticking with the but, and the Oni Fury won't get taken here, as the accounting department do end up backing away, outside of the enhanced Fire Giant, and that seems kind of disingenuous to say, because it's a massive boost to your team. If you're looking strictly at golden XP, Gore, Everyone's level 20 except Shoxy. Foxy, all the builds are completed outside of maybe some power pots here. As time has gone on, and this is indicative of that gold difference that we've talked about, this is probably the closest fight we've gotten if it weren't for that enhanced Fire Giant.
It's just so difficult. I mean, at this point, most of the numbers and power scaling is on the side of accounting department.
Oh, no!
It depends on the engage, and it is all Collis all day in terms of engage as of right now. Blink and Pluck used, and instead it's still Snake Hunters running away. They weren't able to capitalize on it. Look, this is a big difference, right? Collis blinks, plucks, misses out on every opportunity there, and yet still gets out alive. Every time Shoxy Foxy has been between 3 or more members of accounting department, they have been knocked into their passive and killed.
Right. You're right. I don't know what Shoxy Foxy could do. I mean, you get in. Your passive is like the lurking in the waters for Kagas, right? You get a moment where you're between death, but it's more consistent, obviously, for Kagas. Deathwalker, wow, is going to solo out the Phoenix on the right-hand side. Rapio rotates in. Looks like enough damage to get the solo kill on Deathwalker. Had the Ratatosker hung around, but that's going to split up the map. Look at this from Shoxy Foxy, though. They've rotated in behind the accounting department, but accounting department maybe realize it's coming. A ping rings out on the right-hand side. Ice will engage on the left as the right side Phoenix does go down. It's a leap away, but that's a 3-man mez from Shoxy Foxy, and unfortunately all that sticks is Kagas for just a moment. And now it's the Snake Hunters trying to chase out, but Deathwalker's still doing it. He's just going to get the mid lane Phoenix as well. He can waltz on over to left and grab that Phoenix should he choose. The Snake Hunters need to win this fight. Vaporish Coast at least gets it off to a good start with 1 kill over onto Ice, and Rapio finds the second. Now Kagas is caught out. He's alone. It's a double for Vaporish Coast and Deathwalker. Gore, he's going to turn around. He's going to try to end this game. Rapio back into the fountain, and out he comes. Does Deathwalker have the damage with the minions? He might be able to get it done, but it's 10% HP on the Titan, and the Snake Hunters will live on.
I mean, they have to be careful, though. Like, look, you could probably kill Deathwalker here, although it is going to be difficult. It's Ratatosker. He can run away. But there's fire minions on right side. It looks like they're going to take a little more precedent over here. That's a surprise, Dave. I mean, Snake Hunters...
Good fight
look,
for Snake Hunters.
I think that... I mentioned it. I give it to them around the EFG. But over there, I did not expect this to go their way. 30 seconds left for Deathwalker's buff to end up wearing off. You're still a massive amount of gold down, but I think Snake Hunters are in a better position now more than ever. Granted, it's not a comfortable position. They still have to be worried about all of these fire minions, but look where they are. They're in mid, they're in right. You can still collapse into a fire giant. They get a tier 1, probably a tier 2 here. I mean, you get another fight like that, you win the game. Same thing goes for accounting department. It really is a coin flip. Granted, it's a weighted coin flip. It's more like a, let's call it, what, 65-35? Maybe a little even more heavily in favor of accounting department. But not a guaranteed shot for them. And that says something when they have 2 Phoenixes down on the other side.
Ice jumps in, immediately mezzed out by Shoxy Foxy. Vaporish Coast has put on a clinic of damage here this game, approaching the 40,000 mark. And the Jingwei will need to get it done yet again here. Wolfie, I'm a monster. Big old goose egg on damage on that one, as Okeanos will do his best to back away and pour out damage as well. Now Deathwalker down low. Kalas is down low as well. 4 ultimates used by both teams. Only the Hunters have theirs remaining. It's the fire minions that bring the threat, and the Snake Hunters will have to leave. Fire Giant, sub 1 minute from respawning.
I mean, this is a very dangerous game. I mean, Snake Hunters, you have only a limited window with every aggression, right? Every single attack you enact on, you're going to have to worry about the fact that there's fire minions going down the lane, right? You can push them up as far as you want, but eventually they're going to make it there. And so those are little bomb fuses that they have in mid lane right now. It's very, very long fuse that they don't have to worry about. They're pushing back the fuse. I guess adding rope to it is the better way to keep with the analogy over there for Snake Hunters. Right now there's a lot of pressure onto it. Ult's coming right back up. A little bit faster here for accounting department. Maybe makes it a little more worrisome for Snake Hunters to be able to engage on this. So if accounting department start the fight soon, those ults might not be able to make a difference, but it looks like they should come off cooldown just before any action happens.
Yep.
Snake Hunters have to, I would argue at this point, perform a 3rd miracle, I guess, the way things have been going for them. Maybe it's just the 2nd miracle. Win this fight, the game is yours.
Man, Shoxy and Deathwalker dueling it out in the mid. Deathwalker might just want to go end the game. The Fire Giant down at half HP, but instead Deathwalker will leave, and the Fire Giant has been reset on the right as well. Phoenix is not respawning. Deathwalker could stick around, take down the right side Phoenix as it respawns, but instead it's going to be a flank from the back. Now from this Ratatosker, has he found Gunter? He has. Beads, Aegis, both used in conjunction, but has it saved the Raijin's life? For the time being, yes. But Raijin has to leave. It's a big I'm a monster from Wolfie to set up the damage. In the up-down, Lord of the Afterlife from Kha'Zix trying to peel this fight back for the rest of the Snake Hunters, but Ice Ice instead will get the damage done. Titan being looked at by fire minions, Shoxy Foxy left alone. Big Mez to delay out this fight, but the accounting department have found a big pick.
I mean, it's been such a good performance from Snake Hunters, but with this kill going down, I mean, you're defending the base, your Phoenixes are back up, but you don't need the Fire Giant to knock these down anymore. You're 39 minutes into the game, you have a Hunter right behind you. You're exactly where you want to be if you're accounting department. They should just be able to run this one in. They have to be careful, Dave. I mean, Gunter, Coast, there's a lot of damage on the board for Snake Hunters. At least under the Titan, it's going to melt fast, but they just have to withstand a little bit here, and they could be able to turn this around.
Coast does not have Aegis or Beads, but that's not where the eyes go. Instead, accounting department working towards the Titan. If all 5 just do the damage, the game will be over. In 40 minutes in, accounting department finally able to break the base. But Gore, I mean, look, that's a win for accounting department, right? But it's got to feel like that game could have been over 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Had the Snake Hunters not been able to put up some good Phoenix defenses.
I think that's something that if you're like accounting department, like in this case, especially because of the other teams that you're fighting, this is one that maybe game number 2 you want to have more solidly in your favor. I think this is a showcase of how strong these two teams are, but also just the style of play that they're bringing. Really, really good team fight draft there for the Snake Hunters, but it only works out a little bit. I mean, they give me hope. I even had a little hope for them at the very end. I mean, I'm like, there's no way that Titan lives, but also what if it does, right? Like, I mean, I didn't think this game was going to last as long as it did, but they kept putting up those good fights. Honestly, if they give me action like that, I don't really care how long it goes. It made it a lot more interesting.
Man, Vapor's Coast does above 40,000 damage here in this game. Unfortunately, not enough to get it done. The accounting department, they like big numbers normally, but the smallest number is the most important. One in the win column here in this set for the accounting department. Quick break. Be right back for game 2.
Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat. Let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Let's go. Let me break it down right quick for my haters, my dictators and bad raiders. Since you never seem to get it right no more, then right no more. Kick back your feet and watch your back from perpetrators. My game's strong in my Range Rover. I got the blackjack juice and my racks off the roof, and you see the SUV rolling up next to me, old enough to take you over Sesame. Remember, back when I was a kid, all I did was stroll back from the cold over South Bridge. My mama told me do no entiendo. All I ever heard was noise over my Nintendo. But when you get the chance to go up in this life, make sure that you take it, never ever think twice, yeah. And if you wanna get higher, pick up the mic and get to rapping, cause you're never getting higher. Yeah, in the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh, yeah. In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's zone, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh. When I reminisce over you, my lordy, rest to make way for my newfound shorty. Check in the mic for ligaments while I'm wrecking. Same time came out the womb while recording. All I ever did was make jokes out of suckers. Told them about the life that I live, mad ruckus. But if you never seen a grown man rock jewelry like me, jealous if it coming over you, then you bite me. All these other people, they be coolin' just like me. Talking about the homies and I usually right beat. Yeah, my crew is off the roof, and I told her not to brag about the crew, even though it's new. Yeah, even though it's new. Yeah, In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam.
Well, when we talk about what the overall meta is like in the EU SCC, what their play style really boils down to, if you are ever confused about what we mean by that, go back and watch that game between the accounting department and Snake Hunters, because Mifflin, that was quintessential, the essential oil of EU SCC play. Slow and methodical and farming only through the first 20 or so minutes, and then some very close but nowhere near definitive team fights towards the end. It was a close battle and some good defenses there by the Snake Hunters, but accounting department take game one.
Yeah, I think if there's any takeaway from that match in particular, Aggro, it's that Smite is a team game. It doesn't matter how strong you are individually, how much weight you're carrying, how much you're able to, how many people you can force into your backpack. At the end of the day, it is a 5 versus 5. Vapourish Coast tried his best to prove it otherwise, but it does not work out for him. So you got to talk about what the accounting department does well, and I think it comes down to macro play. It just felt like they were constantly forcing pressure onto the Phoenixes, forcing pressure inside these team fights. If the Snake Hunters ever took the bait and stepped up for an actual 5-on-5 engagement, Deathwalker would just leave and take down an objective.
And he did that time and time again. Left Phoenix, right Phoenix, mid Phoenix, the Titan. He tried to backdoor all of them while the Snake Hunters were fighting. But he could do it because he knew that his team wouldn't get absolutely demolished in those team fights. Okeanos looked very good in this game on this Heimdall. He had to in order to match what Coast was doing, because I agree, man, Coast was absolutely going off on that Jingwei, but not quite enough. 5-1-3 for Okeanos, 5-1-2 for Vapourish Coast in this one. Rapio did what he could as well, the only other member of Snake Hunters, to find the kill column.
But you know what? I was having a slight existential crisis on the death segment last time, trying to figure out what Ice was going to be able to do on this Odin, but it felt like at no point did it really come up. He wasn't playing that engaged role with Odin because Kalas was setting up so well with the Sobek Plucks, or Deathwalker was coming down with his ultimate. Instead, a couple of times in these engagements when accounting department decided to run away, they would drop the cage in the middle of a lane and just have the whole team walk through it, and it essentially acted like a massive Ymir wall. And if that's the strategy, it works out incredibly well for them.
It sure did. At the end of the day, they find the victory, and they won almost every single full-strength team fight that they went up against, but it was often 1-for-1 or 2-for-1 or 3-for-1. You know, it wasn't a whole lot of... They were never coming out of these engagements squeaky clean, and you can thank Coast for that the vast majority of the time. 44,000 damage for him. No one even sniffing 30k in the game besides him. At this point, Miff, I think if you're Snake Hunters, you go, hey, Coast, what do you want us to play around you so that you can keep doing what you're doing? Hopefully we can try and match that energy.
Yeah, Coast, do you want on her? Like, I'll pass ban 6 times if we have to, just so you can play an aggressive god. Maybe get him back on the Hou Yi we got to see last week. Either way, though, Vapourish Coast should have run of the field for his team. I think when you have a player playing as hot as he is right now, you got to kind of leverage it a little bit, play around him. So I think you're absolutely right, Aggro. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Coast God selected top 2, top 3 in the P's and B's.
I think that might be the idea here for the Snake Hunters. Give Ko something comfortable. And look, the Kumbhakarna, it's been a mainstay for Shoxy Foxy. you don't have to pick it though. You know, like Kumba, no one's twisting your arm to pick Kumba Karna in any given game. There are games where Kumba's good. You know, there's a Kali on the enemy team. Give me a Kumba on my side so that he can eject her as soon as she presses that ultimate. But otherwise, man, I don't need it on my side. I don't know how you feel, but I'm not a Kumba Karna stan.
Well, I mean, there are definitely matchups that you just want to get rid of someone, right? The Kali, as you highlighted, I think he's pretty good into set as well. Goes into the Kingslayer stance. All right, maybe I just eject you from the playfield. Same for Erlang Shed. Any auto attack jungler, by the way, just hates Kumba Karna. It's the bane of my existence. I think I've got a slightly skewed view, though, Aggro. As a jungler, Kumba Karna is legitimately the bane of my existence.
Yeah, no, I'm with you right there. Team Kumba haters on the desk right here, both in terms of how he plays in pro play and having him against me, because I don't want him in either way. Heimdall and Wukong are the bans here for the Snake Hunters, taking that Heimdall away from Okeanos. I think this almost forces the hand of accounting department to ban the On Her if they so choose, but they decided to ban the set instead, which is interesting to me, Myth, because they just beat it in the last game. They weren't too worried about it beforehand. He got it at the bottom 2, if I remember correctly, in the last game. And now they decide to ban it and leave open the On Her that they were worried about after Coast just went absolutely ballistic on them. And it's because, Mifflin, they had the Soul Read on the Snake Hunters. They wouldn't go for the On Her, and that they would go for Sobek instead.
Yeah, because why would you prioritize your best player at the time, right? Why do you want Vapor's Coast, who somehow puts out 40-some-odd thousand damage on Jingwei on a guy that could dominate lane like On Her? Instead, Sobek getting locked in for that disengage as well as engage potential for the Snake Hunters. But what's given up in exchange? Well, Tsukiyomi's still on the table out there for accounting department if they so elect, but instead, it is going to be the Osiris locked in. So far, I gotta say, man, accounting department in that second pick slot, finding some immense value. I think they come out ahead here in P's and B's.
I mean, that Sobek was very crucial for Kalas in that game, so I think taking that out of his hands does make some sense to me. And I suppose if he's feeling the hot hand on the Jingwei, that's fine. But I don't know. I mean, it seems to me if you're picking Jingwei and giving your best player the ball 25 minutes from now, I guess the pacing of Game 1 is exactly what they're going to want to go to, is they take Jingwei Scylla, shore up that back line, and make sure that Gunter is going to be able to get off some more effective damage, at least theoretically, than he was able to on the Raijin.
Yeah, so far the top 3 of Snake Hunters is pretty slated for a similar pace that we saw in Game 1, but an accounting department did not catch that memo, did not want to take that salty run back, and instead feels like they're kind of expediting the pace a little bit, aren't they? On Her and Osiris, both incredibly aggressive early game gods, matched up with Ares, who hits his power spike at level 3, can actually 100-0 certain gods at level 3, by the way. So I think accounting department is trying to bring the fight a little bit earlier on, and they've got some pretty sneaky good counter matchups. Jingwei going to struggle against the chains, as is Sobek, as is Scylla. Scylla can't even use the ultimate to escape because Ares steals movement speed. He'll just stick to your heels pretty easily.
Yeah, very easy for him to keep up with you in that regard. A Snake Hunter is going to look towards the mid laner, Wolfie, knowing that his Scylla is not available, and take away that Kuku Khan. I imagine something that Wolfie plays like that Ra could be here, the Poseidon that he's known for, or the Giannis. And they're going to go with the last one of those options in that Giannis. One of those picks that has really taken the SPL by storm as of late. We haven't gotten a chance to see it look quite as dominant at this level, but that's usually how Giannis goes. And Wolfie's going to get to see the whole draft here before he locks in his pick. It's Raven this time for Ice Ice.
Yeah, I think the Ravens, again, fitting that exact same identity that we established here. They're trying to keep the pace up and bring the fight into the early game. Maybe we see more than 2 kills before the 20-minute mark this time around, because accounting department, they're scaling come late game off of the core 4 that we're seeing right now. It is not phenomenal. It's not great. If they have a similar pace that we saw in Game 1, they should just legitimately get outscaled by the entirety of the Snake Hunters. Scylla and Jingwei, both incredibly strong in the late game. Sobek, one of the best late game supports in the game as well, just because of the additional tankiness and the versatility for peel as well as engage. Whereas accounting department, I see just 4 run it down, trying to get you in the early type gods. I feel like they put a timer on themselves with this draft.
Well, Snake Hunter is trying to match that early game pressure, go with Kakulin and the Ratatosk. Are a little bit surprised to not see that signature Cerberus pickup there for Kha'Zix in the solo lane, but they decide they needed a little bit more pressure on the map in order to match what accounting department have. Kakulin and Rat are the calls, and now Wolfie gets to look at the entirety of the enemy draft and go with something, and he decides to go with Agni. Not necessarily, I don't view Agni as early game or late game. I think he's really strong in the mid game and has strengths in both parts of early and late. But I don't see him as a specialist in either the early game or the late game. So bringing a little bit of well-roundedness to the draft here for the accounting department.
Yeah, Agni is the epitome of consistency, right? You know exactly what he's going to be doing. He's been in the game for nearly a decade now, and it is that mid-game specialty that you bring up. The second he ticks over to level 5, going to have 3 meteors available to him to help finish off these kills or find CC from a range and set up for the rest of his team, as well as just being a standard mage come late game. If the game does go late, could at least help out on defense and on siege if they so need. I think Agni rounds out this draft pretty well, but I think we may have benefited a little bit more, so accounting department that is, from a slightly more early game specialized mage.
Well, they're trying to get a little bit of late game in the draft, I suppose. We'll see if it works out. Accounting department trying to up the speed a little bit here potentially in game number 2. Let's throw it down to Dave and Gore. Hopefully they can keep up.
Yeah, maybe we'll get 4 or 5 kills in 20 minutes, Gore, instead of 2 or 3 kills maybe here in game number 2, and at that pace would be very difficult, I think, for us to keep up with. So fingers crossed it doesn't go that speedy here. Jokes aside, that's how these teams we know like to play this game. Cool and calculated, then good team fighting down the stretch, and good shot calling, hopefully, to win the game. One of the things that Snake Hunters were missing in game 1 was consistent on cooldown engage, it felt like, Gore, and I think they've addressed that pretty well here going into game 2.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see, again, Shoxy Foxy now having that pluck, Rapio going to have exactly the engage we saw Deathwalker use, and Kha'Zix, Kukulkan just all in all able to get into a team fight, I would argue, a little bit better than the Osiris. And I'm going to put an asterisk next to that just because of the fact that Deathwalker's Osiris, I think, has a little bit of an exception to the rule based on what we've gotten to see, right? Most Osirises might not be able to engage the same way that someone like a Kukulkan will, but I think Deathwalker is going to have a lot of control over here. I'm actually really excited to watch this because he has been a dominant force, much like you're seeing there on this Osiris. And there's a lot of things, I mean, look, when I look at the accounting department, like the only big, like, #1 pick they have is this on her. But every single one of those picks I'm worried about because they're so strong for them as individuals. I think Wolfie here on this Agni, same thing for Isis on Raven, same thing for Deathwalker on Osiris and Kalas on Ares. Like, all 4 of those maybe are not your go-to #1 picks in the league, but they are absolutely going to be devastating here, and I think accounting department's in a surprisingly good area to continue this fight.
That's right, the Porsche Coast on the back, or what was a great game 1. Wolfie, aggressive here, playing with fire, even though he's on the ice skin for the Agni here. Dashing into jungle and mid. Porsche Coast gets knocked back there. Rapio, half HP. Kalas a little bit lower in the areas to be able to walk away. It's a tough laning phase if we're kind of continuing the conversation around Porsche Coast and Shoxy Foxy here early on. If Kalas misses one of those chains, not super mobile as this Ares. Not until the ultimate comes online you get that CC immunity on cooldown. So it's a tough lane to kind of survive this onslaught from Gore.
I think there's going to be an interesting dynamic here. I'm trying to look at not the global scale of the game, but like how long this game goes and like where the peaks and rises are for each team. And honestly, I think Snake Hunters, look, if this is another 40-minute bout, I put almost all of my money into Snake Hunters stock, right? Like, just the way things are, that composition at 40 minutes, to me, should win anything in there, and that's in their sights. There's a Fire Giant, an Oni Fury, Gold Fury, what have you. Like, they should be able to control it all. But I'm wondering if they're going to be able to get to that point, if it's going to last as long. I think right now, level 4, this is where I want to see a little bit more of both junglers. I think Rapio and Raven here for Ice both should be getting a little more aggressive now that they've ticked over to their kind of early power spikes, quote-unquote, like where they really start to come online at that level 3, level 4, maybe for Rapio, level 5 mark. But Wolfie, I think, is also waiting for that level 5 mark, maybe going to hit a little bit harder, have a little more control than Scylla. I'm just wondering if accounting department have enough to get themselves enough of a massive lead early on,
right,
that they don't need to make it to 40 minutes. Like, it doesn't have to be a very long game. They'll be able to shut Snake Hunters down. Similar to what we saw the Elysium set earlier, right? Just win really hard early, or else this late-game team comp might roll over you.
Yeah, literally game 1 was twice as long as both of the games in set number 1 combined. It felt like Rapio Level 5. Not spotted out by a ward, but playing safe enough for Kalas and Okeanos that the Ares and the Anher under no real threat for the time being. Wolfie on this Agni. Going to be an interesting thread to follow throughout this game, as Ice will help confirm those mid-harpies here. This is a pick we've seen Wolfie play a few times, Gore, and the control and the damage that it's able to output. You know, you're not going to match the big burst potential of the Scyllas. Rapio engages onto Ice, and the overhead kick will keep him alive. The Vines there, that's probably the first time I've seen the Vines like play a big role in a fight. Ice had to turn around and knock down the Vines as Rapio was chasing him, got a little extra damage output in onto him. But over there in the mid, Gore, the power curve of the Scylla and the Agni, I think, are going to be pretty fun to follow.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get this massive I'm a monster-esque burst from the Agni, but you get all the space control as the fight goes on.
It feels like the same conversation we were having. I think Agni is I don't want to say a lesser version of Raijin, because they definitely bring different things to the table, more control from an Agni than what you're getting out of Raijin, which is going to be a whole lot of damage. But I'm interested to see how he's going to play this curve. It's going to be Rapio going in.
Rapio with the counter engage here. Kalas attempting to pull a couple in, and he's got 2.
Oh, he pulled them.
But immediately it's the double kill from Vaporish Coast, but the rotation on through from accounting department could prove fatal. Wolfie grabs one. That's on the Shoxy Foxy. Gunter, I'm a monster, gobbles up Okeanos, but the kill isn't there just yet. At this point, you're trying to give the kill over to someone specific, and it's 3 now for Vaporish Coast, to the tune of about 15 seconds.
Yeah, Okeanos trying to keep those feet hot as long as possible to try and get to the point where you are able to leap away. But unfortunately, Crush, well, it just covers a wide area. Your jukes aren't going to be able to beat the circle. So they end up fighting that. That's good few kills. Look, I mean, this is an early game fights that should be going in favor of accounting department, but that's something that I think is even better for Snake Hunters here. Proactive play. I mean, look, this is how many kills we went into 20 minutes with, right? Like 4 on the board. Like, that is something that you need to be doing, especially with this kind of composition. I think this is the strength of Rapio. I think this is something that he's going to be able to bring a lot more, is that engage deep in across the map, essentially. I mean, semi-global for that ultimate. So use it while you can. Use it while it's an advantage. And I like that they're already getting there, especially with Shoxy Foxy on this Sobek. The engage from Snake Hunters is so much better this time around than last game that they finally get to play the way they want to.
It's about a 700 gold net worth difference between Vaporish Coast and Okeanos score. After a lot of that speed and the engage converts over to 3 kills for this Jingwei. The left side of the map might be a bit of a no-fly zone for everybody but Vaporish Coast and the rest of the Snake Hunters here for a little while. The Scorpion's still standing, purple buff back up, and that means everyone but the solo laners from the Snake Hunters are going to make their way to the left-hand side of the map, looking for an engage. All ultimates are ready, but there are plenty of wards there. Accounting department can just back away from this one, but it looks like another team fight is brewing.
I mean, it's just the question of whether or not you can get in there as accounting department. I actually think with Kalas, once that blink comes off cooldown in 10, it's going to be God.
Whoa, big engage from Ice here, but it's an immediate disengage from Rapio and the rest of the Snake Hunters. There is a stun on the coast, but the airstrike keeps the Jingwei safe enough. Man, it looks like the accounting department will be able to win a big fight there. Unless Wolfie wants to go in on Vaporish Coast underneath this tier 2 tower, it looks like it'll be a fruitless effort. The accounting department found a great engage, but no kills.
I really like the engage on both of these teams, but team fight-wise, with Beads only up for the mid laner here. If you can grab a jungler, a support, solo if they're in the neighborhood, but realistically, you're looking towards trying to pull in Rapio and Gunter. Those are going to be surefire kills. That's where the pressure from Kalas is going to come in handy. Blink is now available. Ult's still hanging out there. With Wolfie's follow-up, admittedly, Ice doesn't have his ult, but you don't really need that as Raven, I think, to be able to follow through. You've got a good set of AoE elsewhere in your kit. I want to see if Kalas looks for a big grouping, maybe tries to lock someone down. Right now, it's still Shoxy Foxy trying to run the show over here.
Has found a few plucks over on the Kalas. But luckily, the Ares now at least tanky enough to survive kind of the return damage there. Kha'Zix is transformed. Ice considered heading back to base, but will cancel his back. A stun shortly, you'd think, but cancel it out, and Kha'Zix will be able to survive Underneath this tier 1 tower, Rapio rotating to the right as well. It looks like just a farm, no real re-engage there. Pressure continuing here on the left side of the map, Gore. This is when things can compound, when the Sobek feels like it can kind of out-pressure that Ares, and Jingwei can keep that foot on the gas, keep farming up safely, 3-0 still, compounding on that lead. Maybe what the Snake Hunters try to do here over the next few minutes.
I want to see, like you said, compound on that lead. Like, build up from what you have. Last game we were talking about it, damage-wise, it was pretty obvious and pretty easy to tell that Coast was the one that was clapping back the most for Snake Hunters. I think there were a couple of other numbers that were high enough up there that you could see they were impacting it, but really it was Snake Hunters that were giving a lot of trouble to other people. And so I want to see if Coast, you know, again, maybe do it without Coast, but also have him readily available. He's 3-0 right now. All 3 of your kills have gone to your Hunter. That's great for him to be able to get ahead. But I want to see that pressure. It also looks like he's opting into that execution before the Wind Demon, kind of the opposite of what he did last time around. So maybe going to be lacking a little bit. Of course, he's almost a full item ahead of Okeanos, so he's probably feeling confident in his ability to be able to get the Wind Demon still before Okeanos finishes off his execution.
Whoa. Okeanos uses the ult, I think, to confirm the purple buff there and actually gets good damage onto Vaporish Coast. Maybe even accidentally. Ice is here on the left-hand side. Might be able to do enough damage to get something done on the Coast, but Jingwei is safe enough there that Tier 1 tower won't be attempted. This is what we saw the accounting department doing a lot in the early game with the Scylla in game number 1. Was going for these objectives because they knew that they had the confirm on it, and the Snake Hunters will take the Pyromancer, and that's where that kind of quiet gold lead built up. We didn't see a lot of kills with the objectives all in game 1 going to the team with the Scylla, so I think smart now by the Snake Hunters to realize they have the opportunity to work down the objective and get a little extra gold.
Kind of surprised to see him lax. I feel like they keep clapping back in certain moments here for Snake Hunters. But it is a little more relaxed pace with that Gold Fury down and nothing really to fight over, I guess. They're just taking it the way that it needs to. Almost one more, Dave. They've given me a taste of the action.
I know.
I'll be able to jump right back into it and see what's going on for them. But I recognize why they're being a little more slow-paced. What I'm really interested in, and now, because the Gold Fury having just respawned over here, Kha'Zix has made the rotation over here. Accounting department are going to have to make a big loop to be able to contest this one. Otherwise, Snake Hunters might just be able to walk away with it scot-free, let alone being able to have or forced to engage on a fight and actually win something for it.
And that's when, in game 1, the slow snowball began. It was a small pinch of snow around the Gold Fury that started there for the accounting department, because they had this Scylla to confirm the objective. They do have some ranged burst damage, accounting department, with this Agni. Again, not going to be as heavy as what Scylla can provide, but here's a big fight. Kalas trying to pull some in, able to get one on the backside. It's Gunter who goes down first. It's a massive loss now for the Snake Hunters as Rapio dunks on down. Look at the health bars of the accounting department trying to disengage. Kalas able to do so for the time being. Shoxy Foxy can close this gap.
Oh no!
Ice instead that gets blocked back through, and Shoxy Foxy will get that one. Snake Hunters trying to pick up the scraps.
Shoxy went for copper and found gold, dude. I mean, that is the worst case scenario, Collis, with a great execution on the blink for the dodge. But the worst possible positioning for that one leads him right to Ice. But Deathwalker, look, he's still kind of hanging around. He sees some people over here, the relatively low. Look, 2v1, you're Osiris. You've got a little bit of regen. I don't know if you go back in here, but Deathwalker's going to anyway.
He's at least going to walk towards the Snake Hunters, but Gunter coming back from base, I think Deathwalker realizes that Scylla is close by, and a big volley of damage from that will be a kill over the Snake Hunters mid laner. So, Gold Fury stopped, but now Gold Fury started again by the accounting department. Some burn damage here. Privy to it, though, are the Snake Hunters, and once the Scylla shows her face, I think you've got to leave. Gunter just being in the right place at the right time will keep the Gold Fury right where it's at.
I mean, a good fight from both squads. I mean, that was just fun to watch, being able to see them all get incredibly low. But here's where the problem comes through.
We're doing it again.
As you had highlighted earlier. Guess what Gunter has? First off, both relics, but also his ult. So who's going to be able to contest this one? Accounting department!
Whoa, what got it? What got it through the I'm a Monster there as Kalas will attempt to pull a basic from on her. Steals away the Gold Fury. Oh no, and then Gunter dies at the end anyway. This could be a big difference maker here in this game. It's an attempted knockup from Kha'Zix, but Deathwalker will walk away from it. Rapio dunks down beneath the tier 1 tower and eats a stun. Okeanos has some uptime in this fight as well. As the Snake Hunters continue to find damage, they lose the Fury Gore, but Snake Hunters find 2.
And so far, I would argue maybe a little bit of an even trade, maybe in favor of Snake Hunters even, because you get rid of their jungler on the other side. Although Ice Ice, again, 1 and 3, maybe not necessarily the end-all be-all of accounting department right now. It seems like an on her basic attack. I want to give some credit over to Wolfie as well. Deathwalker has been the real driving force for them at 2-0 and 2. So you need something to clap back. It's Coast, it's Rapio right now that are the two that... realistically, they're the two that need to be dealt with the most, right? If you can get to Coast, I think so much damage disappears off the board that it makes it a lot easier to really knock them down. Although, I say that, and look at all the player damage. It's actually Kha'Zix right now who is at the top of the charts in that case. Then all 5 members of accounting department, then the other 4 of the Snake Hunters. So maybe it's not as simple as killing off the guys that aren't dying. Maybe it's dealing with Kha'Zix first and foremost. Right. Getting him off the table to make sure that they just don't have a leg to stand on while you push back.
Tough. Could call in tanky, slippery, does some good damage. So not surprising seeing him up towards the top there. Even tougher now to deal with the Kha'Zix, or with Kha'Zix, excuse me, as he's picked up the spectral armor already. So if there are crits from Okeanos, as low as that chance might be at the moment, they'll effectively do nothing to Kha'Zix over the next couple of minutes. Sunder picked up here for Deathwalker Gore. Could be a good target if Deathwalker's able to jump in, find big burst damage onto one of those tanks, or if you really want to just delete Gunter, then that Sunder maybe makes some sense. It also looks like we're kind of ushering back in teleport to the solo lane meta here. For a while it was kind of beads no matter what, and then blink or something else depending on what the game needed, but now we've got a few teleports over the last couple games.
I'll be honest, with this amount of CC, it's kind of surprising to not see a beads, but it's that difficulty that escalates with it, right? If you get teleport, you can just cross the map in an instant. Looks like this time they're going to be able to get it. Kalas is going to go in there. This might not be a good fight for the Snake Hunters.
Kha'Zix does go down first, and that's what we figured the accounting department might need to do in order to feel better in these fights. Shoxy Foxy lurking in the waters. Oh, this could be perfectly timed. No. Wow, what a play from Kalas. Shoxy Foxy is able to dash away, but only as far as the blue buff pit. And Ice Ice
for fire.
Will reap the rewards. Gore, you call for fire. Accounting department considered it, but Greater Scorpion is the answer here. Look, there's a Scylla still, Jingwei, Ratatosker, maybe still a chance for a steal as Rapio will jump in onto Okeanos, who tries to rejoin the rest of his team, see if he can stay alive, and just the pressure of the accounting department forces Rapio away.
So I want to say I still think fire is the better call there, mainly because, as you had highlighted, there's a lot of chance for a steal. I think Rapio, Gunter, even Coast have ults that theoretically are going to be able to come in and steal. You've got an Ares and an Osiris. Like, you have a tank advantage over there. Everybody's already on the right-hand side of the map. It just feels like accounting department, especially with the numbers advantage, Scylla walks up to try and steal it. Guess what you do? You kill Scylla or you force some relics. Same thing for Coast, same thing for Rapio. I feel like it's a completely missed opportunity for them to really get a big power spike and take control of the game on their side. Granted, quote-unquote safer play, right? That's definitely something that we've been, I think this set personifies more than anything. But there is something to be said that small opportunities like that, a Greater Scorpion means nothing at this point in the game. Like, yes, enhanced buffs, they're really nice. It's 20% CDR on your blue buff now all of a sudden as opposed to 10. But it's not the same painstaking difficulty it is as taking on 5 members with Fire Giant. And I think it's kind of a warrants of the meta in Europe, right? I think a North American team runs to an FG, maybe tries to go for a Fury. Maybe that's what they're setting up for here. Accounting department on the other side, kind of starting to group on this left-hand side around the Oni Fury. But, Dave, you got to win them when you get the opportunities. When you see a window like that one, I feel like it's a great case to either get more kills, force some relics, or get an FG. One of those 3 options is better to me than a Greater Scorpion.
Yeah, it's a good point. Felt like there was room to do more on the back end of a good fight there from the accounting department. Now, all back to even here numbers-wise as the Fury respawns. Vaporish Coast Send up the knock-up. Speaking of knock-up, will Okeanos get knocked up? No, it's going to be up-down instead. But wow, the CC on the back end will find the on her nonetheless. But look at Wolfie rotating in. But so does Gunter. A big crush sends Wolfie running for his tier 1 tower. Kha'Zix dashes away, but they haven't gotten the kill. Oh, this could be massive from Kalas. Only one gets pulled in, but the ultimates have to get used in exchange. The Ares will fall. And Vaporish Coast rampaging now at 503.
Yeah, knock this tower down, and guess what? You can either pressure a tier 2 or you get an Onifir. I mean, this is a great win for Snake Hunters because theoretically you can still do both those things I said. You could probably knock down this tier 2, back up, get an Oni Fury either way. And as we had talked about earlier, with those teleports available, like you can see a large cooldown there for Deathwalker. It's great for rotations. I thought Kha'Zix was going to back, maybe stopped because he doesn't have that teleport. Being able to jump back into a fight, though, in the middle of it, or jump into an area where it's right deep in the depths, I should say, of the protection for a team like Accounting Department. It allows Kha'Zix to get back there. I feel like Accounting Department here maybe lost their golden window of opportunity. And that's not to say they're out of it. I think that if they go, you roll it back about 3 minutes, they win those 2 kills onto Shoxi and Kha'Zix, and everybody else is either squishy, easily killed, or dealt with in one way or another, and you get an FG, or if there is something more available to you on the map, unfortunately for them, there wasn't. So it's either FG or nothing. Then you find yourself in a position now where, yeah, maybe it was hard to burn down. Honestly, maybe there's an alternate universe where they don't go for the steal, but they rotate in afterward and try to kill anybody who has low health bars. Still have 5 people, so you can argue numbers in that case. But there's some universe where I think Accounting Department make that call and things go catastrophic for them. But I think there's also plenty where they make that call and instead of being 4,000 gold down, catastrophically losing a fight and a Fury over there and left, they're instead starting to knock down some of these towers themselves, or I guess at this point would have already knocked them down, right? Winning these fights. Because this is a composition that, look, I'm leaning on Deathwalker right now. I think Okeanos is going to be heavy, but he's been a high priority focus target early on. Wolfie, Agni is great for control, but he doesn't bring much else. And Robin, while he can carry, isn't necessarily who I think of as a carry assassin. And so Accounting Department have a lot to live up to compared to what Snake Hunters have. This is a draft that I won't even say it plays itself, but especially in the late game, it just hits too hard to really counter.
Look, somebody's got to get on Vaporish Coast at some point, right? I mean, now it's
Eventually.
in back-to-back games where the Jingwei has effectively been untouched in the backline and has just been able to do too much damage. Vaporish Coast had the 3 kills off the bat, and that could have just been where this game ended if the Accounting Department aren't able to turn it around. Deathwalker is going to find Vaporish Coast. That's an airstrike up and over, but Ice has found Gunter elsewhere in this fight. Up in the sky is Rapio, who will dunk down, find the knockup onto the Osiris, and a big chain from Kalas will pull 2 right back in. It's a knockup and a push to the side, and Kalas will be plucked right into the awaiting arms. But there is enough tankiness that keeps Kalas alive just a little bit longer. The survivability of this Accounting Department team is winning the fight.
I mean, they're so low now, but this is where the control is really going to be able to come through and flourish. Look at the lockdown they have, but look at the damage from Coast!
Oh, Coast uses the Aegis, but it's not enough this time. Massive from Okeanos. And Gordon, you have enough health to go towards FG. You feel like you have to now. Deicide for the Accounting Department, 22 minutes in. And now the FG is going to get called, and you feel a second breath of life now in this game.
I honestly do, and a lot of it comes down to how that fight is engaged, and specifically, it's very disjointed from Snake Hunters. It doesn't seem like they're all on the same page for when they want to go in, how they want to go in.
Oh, no!
They invest a lot to lock down specifically Deathwalker there, yeah, in that fight. Unfortunate for Kalas there. But Deathwalker gets a lot of heavy investment early on. Gunter is way out of position compared to the rest of them. Makes it a lot easier to deal damage and kill him. Look, Gunter died with both relics up, and I want to say with his ult available as well. Like, Gunter was melted before Gunter knew what was going down. And because of that, it made it a lot easier for them. Now, granted, you should, like clockwork, be ready to hit those relics. The fact that they're not on cooldown right now is maybe more of a glowering error on the side of Snake Hunters than it is necessarily a redeemable quality for Accounting Department. But the fact that they get that kill earlier on makes it a lot easier because these fights have been dictated. The one earlier that Accounting Department won was a lot of control when they forced Gunter out of there and killed him off. The Scylla has not been able to have a lot of effect. I mean, she's doing less damage than the Ares, less damage than the On Her. She's only slightly above Shoxy Foxy. So Gunter has been negligible this game, but I'm a Monster, Crush, they're still powerful in these late game team fights 23 minutes in. So even better on them to kill them off early, and then it translates into something else, Dave, and something that has been happening to Accounting Department over and over again. It didn't happen that time. Okeanos got to live for the first 5 seconds of the fight. After the first 5 seconds, if Okeanos is alive, there's a lot of damage from that on her that just hasn't been available to Accounting Department up to this point.
And now somehow Okeanos is at a point where he's, granted just one tier of an item, but an item ahead of what Porsche Coast has had, despite Coast being 6-1-3 here in this game. So the Deathbringer ready to go quicker for Okeanos. And so the turnaround from Accounting Department, massive, and it all really came down to one fight here. Snake Hunter showing at least soft defense around this tier 2 tower. The engage potential of this Ratatosker, yes, he's going eye to eye with Ice right now, but the drop of a hat can use the into the Cosmos and then land into the Accounting Department, but that won't be the target here. Snake Hunters just show some face, back away, in towards their Phoenix line. A Primal Fury started up here, Gore. But if you're not willing to defend a tier 2, I don't know if Primal Fury is a better target to defend either.
Yeah, if I'm going to lay my life down on the line for anything, it's a Phoenix at this point. Maybe a tier 2, but I'm chilling under the Phoenix for the most part. I'm surprised to see Snake Hunters get as aggressive as they do there. Because even right here, things feel a little risky for them. With all their ults available, again, relics available, maybe makes things a little bit easier. Beads are up. That's probably the most crucial portion. Collis got a really big set of pulls last time. Either way, that damage that comes through from the Ares ult is something that you can't just scoff at.
Wow, and it's big damage over onto Gunter. I'm a Monster connects, but the Aegis gets used, and Okeanos not going to survive the onslaught there from the Sillets. 3 ultimates used for 1 kill. 2 ultimates used in defense. Of course, Wolfie's ultimate charging up now for himself. So just the 1 pick, but it's on to Okeanos' score. So now the tower shred potential of this Accounting Department Fire Giant has been lessened.
I think the team fight potential is still deadly. That's why you're seeing Snake Hunters be a little too timid to go in and fight. Deathwalker, at this point, I'm still very frightened, I think, of the on her. I'm a little scared of Ice and Wolfie, but Deathwalker is definitely a bigger threat on paper. They invested a lot into him last time, didn't get much for it. But you see how this works out. I mean, you get all of the pressure on the Okeanos. All of a sudden, Accounting Department has to fall back because he's their mainstay of damage. Whereas if you can kill off Gunter or Coast here in the very first few seconds, I think Accounting Department are going to find things sailing smooth for them on the other side. It's just about the engage and, well, at this point, the follow-up.
Whoa! Shoxy Foxy has just been slowly whittled away here, and look at Deathwalker force the airstrike out of Vaporish Coast. Kha'Zix alone in the backline with the rest of the Accounting Department. Will find the knockup, but immediate turnaround and stun there from Wolfie. Rapio dunks down into the back. Collis with the double pull, but is that where you want the Snake Hunters Accounting Department? I'm not so sure. Now it's 2 more kills for the Snake Hunters. I'm a Monster, no good. Ice still full HP, gets the root on a Shoxy Foxy, and the Desert Fury will clean up the damage.
They're able to go 3 for 3 now if they choose to fight on equal footing. It looks like Accounting Department admittedly come out with the win. I mean, look, there's not a lot of wins here. It's 2,000 gold separating these two teams. But now they have Okeanos back in the equation. Wolfie, Collis going to be respawning relatively soon. It is not a surefire path to anything at this point. Not a tower, definitely not a fire giant. But it does give them a little wiggle room. What is that, like 3 seconds or more than what Snake Hunters are going to have when everyone respawns? I want to see the pressure. I want to see what they can do with it. Right now, it should be, farm up, get ready, get wards, get coverage, and that's exactly what they're doing on both sides. Buying as much as you can. Power pots even starting to come through. But vision is going to be what wins this game, as well as that control. Deathwalker jumped to the back line at the very pseudo beginning of that fight. I want to say maybe the middle because of the fight that happened prior. It kind of felt like a prolonged engagement. But Deathwalker engage, Ice engage, being able to jump onto Gunter or Coast and force them, whether it is to ult or to whatever, get out of there, right? Use relics, feel unsafe. I think that's going to be a crucial key for victory for Accounting Department. That's going to be difficult because the engage is so good from Shoxy.
Ice gets plucked, but is able to CC immune out any follow-up there. The dance begins, Gore, around the Fire Giant. A faster-paced game. Look, let's throw our hands up here. It was fast at the beginning, slowed down pretty significantly over the last 15 minutes or so, but has now started to pick up the pace. 17 kills total. No, oh my god, 27 kills total, excuse me. Simple math, that is first grade. And I still somehow find a way to drop the ball. 27 kills is where we're standing. 29 minutes into this game, so it has been faster paced, higher action, and that continues here with Deathwalker, Lord of the Afterlife, into the back line, goes the Osiris, but no kills to be seen. Instead, it's just Kha'Zix alone. The re-engage from Rapio, waiting around the corner. It's a triple dunk, it's massive from the Snake Hunters, but Kalas will pull 2 back in as well. The return damage has been enough here. Now Okeanos has got to get it done all on his own. Does not have the actives, does not have the ultimate, and doesn't have the chance. The Snake Hunters find a couple of kills, but Gore, accounting department, do as well.
I mean, it's that shell that keeps Kha'Zix alive for a little bit
Go,
there
Kalas,
against
go!
Okeanos. Kalas, no, he's going to let that one pass. He has to pull back to help the team out. It looks like they might be able to do something. Ice over here in the jungle as well. I mean, Shoxy Foxy at this point is just running to try and stay alive as long as possible. Look, you're up against the god of slows. That sickle's going to do a lot of work. Good. Blink? Yeah, to be able to get out of there. But you're just going into the waiting arms of Ice. That's not something to taunt over.
No, Ice. Well, won't hit the root, but we'll get the kill here in Shoxy Foxy with 50 seconds left on the death timer. How weird have these fights been, right? Where it's like, it feels like the Snake Hunters get this massive engage, and then after the dust settles on that first big jump in, the Snake Hunters are at like half HP, like a quarter HP it feels like. Like there's enough immediate turnaround damage on the engage that even if you kill Wolfie and Okeanos, Ice is alive. Kalas apparently is doing good damage here in this game with 12,000 higher than not only his own Hunter, but the opposing mid laner. It feels like the Snake Hunters have gotten the engage they're looking for, gotten the targets they've looked for. Wolfie and Okeanos both died in that fight, but they're still losing the damage somehow.
Yeah, and honestly, it just comes down, I think Deathwalker's doing a lot of it. Like you had said, Ice is doing a ton of work where, unfortunately, like Rapio has to jump into the middle of the fray, right? Not a very safe, comfortable spot to be in. Ares is doing a lot of damage to him. Same thing for Kha'Zix and Shoxy. They get so deep that they're kind of isolated that maybe you're not able to kill off Gunter and Coast every time. But you can go off their tanks, and then what are they going to be able to do about it? So far, that's been the lockdown.
Deathwalker engages here. Enhanced Fire Giant around the waist of the accounting department here. Deathwalker low. It's going to be a disengage from Rapio. Tier 2 tower. Now going to go down for the accounting department. Still one Tier 2 in mid. So a couple of Phoenixes open here. But with Deathwalker being this low, Gore might have to slow things down. Will slowly sustain himself back up over time. Half HP, back to full eventually. So maybe you do have the time and just enough sustain to last until the next big fight, which could be around the Primal Fury, could be around the Tier 2 tower, or if it's been what we've seen from the Snake Hunters, it'll be a Phoenix defense.
Well, I didn't even notice it until now, but he went for the Sundering Axe as well, so he's going to be able to steal 5% plus 2% of his protections from items of their health away. So, you know, you're talking about sustain, and not only with that Fire Giant, with that Sundering Axe, he's going to be able to literally strip health away and power himself with it. And so I think a good call for them. You can see the standard movement over here to the left side of the map. And that one's specifically just to try and get this left Phoenix. A good 4-1 split for them. I'd say keep your eyes on Okeanos. The longer he's alive, the better he feels, the better it's going to go. All beads are up, all relics are up. What killed Okeanos last time, at least stopped him from at least getting something in return, was that upgraded shell that Shoxy Foxy has.
Yeah.
So Okeanos probably gonna be feeling that one this fight as well.
Rapio gets rooted down. Ratatosker has to dash away. 6-3 and 8 for Rapio. It's a good game for the Snake Hunters, Jungler, and the Hunter. But the other three have just not been able to consistently be up doing damage in these fights. You have to feel like Kha'Zix in there on the player damage tanky in all facets for this Cullen. But now the accounting department are going to send 5 towards the mid lane. Wolfie hang out in the back, as you'd hope. Ice finds the small advantage onto Gunter and Vaporish Coast. Oh, that's so much damage. Has to airstrike away. It's been such a difficult task to deal with the Jing Wei. And they do TKO the Snake Hunters Hunter initially and get a kill on a Shoxy Foxy and Kha'Zix as well. Gore, they might be looking towards the Titan. Instead, it's mid lane Phoenix identified for the accounting department.
Well, they've got 50 seconds and still a lot of damage technically that exists in Gunter, although He's still sitting just next to bottom. They're going for the trifecta here. They're making sure that there's no comeback potential for Snake Hunters here. Knock down all Phoenixes, all objectives down. This is the weakest the Titan literally will be for them, so it should be easy to walk in and just burn it.
It's the highest damage 3 you could have if you're the Snake Hunters, but the lowest health and protections 3 you could have. No front line, plenty of back line. Gunter engaged on here. Rapio dashes off to the side. There won't be a fight, though. Accounting department just waltz on in. Look, and that is shades of Game 1, isn't it? That's kind of how Game 1 ended, where there's this kind of big, long, exaggerated fight back and forth, and then by the end of it, there's not really a Titan defense. The accounting department just walk in and get it done. Feels like, Gore, maybe one got away from the Snake Hunters here in Game 2.
Yeah, there was a lot of control they had for it, but a couple of fights that just aren't going their way. And honestly, it's nothing that they were doing. They kept engaging the same way they had every time. It was the adaptation from the accounting department that specifically targeted Kha'Zix out. I mean, you go back, replay all of those fights they win, guess who's dead very early on, or at least out of commission very early on. It feels like if they were able to deal with Kha'Zix, get the Kukulkan out of the equation, then nobody else was able to present a threat.
Yep.
I'm going to throw him under the bus for a last time, but Gunter's damage, especially on Scylla, was borderline unacceptable with how low it was. I mean, they almost unimpactful there for what the Scylla was able to bring. The Crush, the Emma Monsters never really being there. Several deaths while both relics were up. I think there was a lot of room for growth in those departments.
And the Kalas Ares, I think, looked pretty good here in this game, Gore. A lot of unique flavor picks that worked out for the accounting department. Accounting department, it's a couple lengthy ones, but they get the 2-0 nonetheless. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, the desk will break this one down.
Kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat. Let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Let's go. Let me break it down right quick for my haters, my dictators and bad raiders. Since you never seem to get it right no more, then right no more. Kick back your feet and watch your back from perpetrators. My game's strong in my range road. I got the blackjack juice and my racks off the roof. And you see the SUV rolling up next to me, old enough to take you over Sesame. Remember, back when I was a kid, all I did was stroll back from the cold over South Bridge. My mama told me do no entiendo. All I ever heard was noise over my Nintendo. But when you get the chance to go up in this life, make sure that you take it, never ever think twice, yeah. And if you wanna get higher, pick up the mic and get to rapping, cause you're never getting higher. Yeah, in the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh, yeah. In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's zone, cause this is our jam. This is our jam. Oh, when I reminisce over you, my lordy, Rest to make way for my newfound shorty. Checking the mic for ligaments while I reckon. Same time came out the wound while recording. All I ever did was make jokes out of suckers. Told them about the life that I live, mad ruckus. But if you never seen a grown man rock jewelry like me, jealous if it coming over you, then you bite me. All these other people, they be coolin' just like me. Talking about the homies and unusually right beat. Yeah, my crew is off the roof, and I told her not to brag about the crew, even though it's new. Even though it's new. Yeah. In the front row, kicking back old school tracks like damn. Can't get enough of this, more like I don't even know where I am. Ooh, baby, get hyped to the beat, let's go, cause this is our jam. This is our jam.
Well, they drafted for more early game in this one in the accounting department. Well, they kind of fell behind early game, if I'm being honest with you. But they still were able to turn the Jets up a little bit sooner and secure the Game 2 and the set victory over the Snake Hunters. Not as clean as the draft might have wanted to look there, Miff, but it gets the job done at the end of the day.
Look, when you draft for early game, you're also drafting for mud fights in the early game as well. So I think that at any point you're able to turn it into an objective transition. You're going to come out ahead inside of these engagements, and that's exactly what accounting department did. When they were able to win out on fights, although dirty, they were at least able to get Gold Furies or Pyromancers or something along those lines to push them even further into the lead.
This front line for accounting department is what really stood out to me. I mean, so many fights where the Snake Hunters were able to take Wolfie and Okeanos out early, and then Deathwalker just became unkillable and would clean up after the fact, or Ice or Kalas would do much of the same. The one engagement in particular by Fire Giant where Snake Hunters killed both backliners instantly, Rapio and Kha'Zix are like owning them, and they lose that fight. I don't know, man. That would be a bit of a tilter for me. But at the end of the day, you got to give credit where it's due to this accounting department squad. They managed to rein in the dominance of Coast a little bit better in this game, thanks in part to that pillar by Okeanos, which blocked the agility. That was nasty from the accounting department Hunter.
Yeah, sometimes you need someone to step up, and Okeanos figured he'd been resting on his laurels in Game 1 enough. Coast's time is over. It's time for us to talk about Okeanos. But I do want to highlight a slight continuity error from the Snake Hunters there. It felt like they knew they were going to outscale in the late game, but for some reason were willing to give up the fights to accounting department in the early, especially considering the pace of Game 1 and how both teams were very willing to wait till late. I wonder what it was on the side of Snake Hunters where they said, all right, yeah, let's fight into these guys at the 10-minute mark. Yeah. It just felt a little weird to me.
Yeah, it didn't end up working out for them. Gunter gets his damage doubled by his mid lane counterpart, Wolfie. 24,000 damage to Gunter's 12. Oof. I think that really played a big factor in this one as Deathwalker tops the player damage charts here in game number 2, nearing that 30,000 damage mark. The Osiris takeaway in game 1 from Snake Hunters maybe making a little bit more sense after you watch that performance from Deathwalker, as he looked absolutely dominant in this game. And Mifflin, this is a big win for his accounting department squad. We are nearing the end of phase 1 of the SCC. We're starting to wind down a little bit, and you got to get near that top 2. You're going to have to get some wins under your belt against your peers, especially the ones who are close to you in the standings, and accounting department have done just that. They now sit alone at 4-2.
Alone at 4-2, but still firmly behind Elysium right up there at 5-1. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be alone for long. It's Pandemonium up against Clay Soldiers pretty soon. If Pandemonium is able to find a win, should be able to match up with the accounting department in that second seed.
And they've got Just F6 on the schedule as we head to that right now, and that means that they're likely to find that 4th win, unless Just F6 can start to turn it around, as they have yet to find their set victory. But you can check that game out on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. before SPL. Of course, we've still got one more game today. That's Average Joe's up against the Tiburones. And then we've got the rest of the NASCC coming at you Friday morning and Sunday morning. So if you're not tuning in a little bit early for the SPL days, then you're missing out on some significantly impressive Smite action, because that's what we've seen in both regions of the SEC so far. Let's switch gears now to the North American side. We'll be right back as we get ready for the final SEC game here on this Thursday.